The untrained mind is like a wild horse, unpredictable, restless, and often leading us into places we never intended to go. Most people believe their thoughts are a direct reflection of truth, but in reality, thoughts are often illusions shaped by past experiences, emotional scars, and societal conditioning. Left unchecked, the mind creates narratives, stories about who we are, what we lack, and why we're not enough. These narratives become our reality, and before we know it, we're living inside a story that's making us suffer. Everyday thoughts come and go like waves, but when we attach to them without awareness, we become lost in them. A single negative thought can spiral into anxiety. A small setback can trigger a feeling of worthlessness. And because the mind isn't trained to observe, it immediately reacts without space, without clarity. In this reactive state, emotions become amplified, decisions become impulsive, and a sense of emptiness begins to take root. We often chase distractions, achievements, or approval from others in an attempt to quiet this inner restlessness. But what we're truly trying to silence is the noise of our own undisciplined thinking. Without awareness, the mind will always seek outward solutions to inward problems. It will label, judge, and compare, not because it is malicious, but because it has never been taught to do otherwise. Training the mind doesn't mean stopping all thoughts. It means creating space between the thought and the reaction. It means watching the mind without identifying with it. This space is where clarity lives. This space is where healing begins. But until that space is created, the untrained mind will keep pulling us into the same cycles of desire, disappointment, confusion, and emotional fatigue. And as long as those cycles remain unconscious, so too will the emptiness. From a young age, we are taught to look outward, to find happiness in success, love in validation, and peace in achievement. We are conditioned to believe that the answers to our discomfort lie somewhere outside ourselves. So we begin the chase. We pursue careers, relationships, recognition, and material possessions, hoping that each milestone will finally bring the fulfillment we crave. And for a moment, it works. There is a brief sense of arrival, a fleeting satisfaction, but then, quietly, the emptiness returns. This is not because the things we pursue are inherently wrong, but because we ask them to fill a space they were never designed to touch. No amount of applause can heal a heart that doubts its own worth. No success can quiet a mind that has not made peace with itself. The external world can offer experiences, but never identity. It can offer stimulation, but never true stillness. And so, even when we have everything we thought we wanted, there remains a subtle ache, an unshakable sense that something is missing. This ache is not a flaw, it is a signal. It is the soul reminding us that what we truly seek cannot be bought, chased, or achieved. It must be cultivated. Wholeness is not something you stumble upon, it is something you build from the inside out. The strength to be alone without feeling lonely. The courage to be still without needing noise. The clarity to stand in front of the mirror and not ask for permission to be enough. The search outside becomes exhausting, only because it is endless. The more we look for ourselves in people, in accomplishments, in distractions, the further we drift from the one place we've never fully explored, within. What we call emptiness is often just unfamiliar silence. And in that silence lives everything we've been looking for. Most people move through life without ever truly seeing themselves. They react to circumstances, absorb emotions, and follow routines without pausing to examine the source of their thoughts or the quality of their inner world. The absence of inner observation creates a life of constant distraction, where awareness is directed outward and never inward. We become experts at managing the external, our appearance, our jobs, our relationships, but strangers to our own minds. Without observing what happens inside us, we mistake every passing feeling for truth. Anger flares and we act on it. Sadness appears and we believe it will stay forever. We become prisoners of emotional weather, tossed around by internal storms we never stop to understand. When we don't observe our thoughts, we become fused with them. There is no distance, no space, no clarity, and in that closeness, confusion takes root. This lack of self-observation is not merely ignorance, it is a disconnection. A disconnection from the present moment, from self-awareness, and from the deeper intelligence that exists beyond thought. When we are never still enough to watch ourselves, patterns form in the shadows. Habits of self-criticism, comparison, and avoidance become our default modes of being. We feel empty, not because there is nothing inside us, but because we have never turned inward long enough to see what's there. Inner observation is not analysis, it is not judgment, it is presence. It is the willingness to sit with oneself and witness without trying to fix, label, or escape. It is the quiet watching of how a thought arises, how an emotion moves through, and how the body reacts. In this space of watching, transformation begins. Not by force, but by understanding. Without that space, we remain unconscious, constantly driven by forces within us that we do not even know exist. And it is in this absence of self-seeing that the feeling of emptiness silently grows. Life often feels like a loop, not because circumstances are identical, but because the mind returns to familiar patterns. Thoughts, emotions, and reactions that have gone unexamined for years. These patterns operate beneath the surface, quietly shaping our choices, our behaviors, and ultimately our sense of self. We convince ourselves that we're evolving, moving forward, yet we find ourselves facing the same emotional struggles, the same relationship dynamics, the same inner conflicts. It's not coincidence, it's repetition, and what repeats becomes invisible. These invisible cages are not made of iron, but of belief systems and conditioned responses. A person who was once hurt may unconsciously avoid intimacy. Someone who felt ignored as a child may constantly seek validation. The behaviors look different on the outside, switching jobs, changing partners, chasing goals, but the emotional script remains the same. Without conscious awareness, we keep playing roles written by past experiences. These roles limit us, define us, and quietly drain our vitality. The danger of repetition is not in the action itself, but in the lack of awareness around it. When we live on autopilot, each day becomes a mirror of the last. We may feel stuck, but we can't see the bars of the cage because we've built them ourselves out of habits we never questioned and fears we never faced. The mind finds comfort in familiarity, even if that familiarity is painful. And so we stay inside these cycles, confusing safety with truth and comfort with peace. To break these patterns, we must first see them, not analyze them to death, but simply witness them with clarity and honesty. Observation brings light to what has been hidden, and once seen, a pattern loses its power. But until that moment of recognition, we remain trapped, seeking new outcomes through old behaviors, hoping for freedom while clinging to the chains. These invisible cages are not imposed upon us. They are self-maintained, and only self-awareness holds the key. There comes a point when the motions of life begin to feel mechanical. We wake up, work, interact, fulfill responsibilities, and repeat the cycle day after day. From the outside, it can look perfectly normal, even successful. But inside, something feels absent, as though the very thing that once gave color and meaning to our actions has quietly faded. This feeling is not simply boredom or fatigue. It's a deeper, more unsettling sensation, the disconnection from purpose. Purpose is not always grand or dramatic. It isn't about saving the world or making headlines. It can be quiet, subtle, deeply personal. It's the internal compass that gives meaning to effort, clarity to decisions, and resilience to struggle. When that compass goes missing, we start to drift. We might still be doing the same things, but the spirit behind them is no longer present. Life becomes about maintenance rather than meaning. This disconnection often happens gradually. A few compromises here, a little self-abandonment there. Maybe we choose stability over passion, approval over truth, or comfort over growth. And while those decisions may have seemed small, over time they pulled us away from what truly matters to us. The further we stray from what feels aligned, the more disconnected we become. Not just from purpose, but from ourselves. Depth when emptiness sets in. Not because life is inherently empty, but because we have stopped living in a way that reflects who we are. In the absence of purpose, even success feels hollow. Achievements don't satisfy. Relationships feel shallow. Time feels wasted. And when we can't find a why behind what we do, even the smallest setbacks feel like burdens too heavy to carry. But the truth is, purpose isn't lost. It's only been ignored. It's still there, underneath the noise, waiting to be remembered. The challenge is to pause long enough to listen, to strip away the external voices and reconnect with what truly moves us. Until that reconnection happens, no amount of effort will fill the space left behind. Pain is an inevitable part of life, yet our instinct is almost always to avoid it. We run from it, numb it, distract ourselves from it, hoping it will fade on its own. But in truth, pain does not disappear when ignored. It settles deeper. It buries itself in the body, in the subconscious, in our habits and reactions. What we avoid doesn't die. It waits. And in that waiting, it shapes us in ways we don't realize. Growth does not come from comfort. It comes from friction, from tension, from discomfort that demands we confront something within ourselves. When we turn away from pain, we turn away from the very process that could make us wiser, stronger, more compassionate. Pain is not the enemy. It is a messenger. It reveals where healing is needed, where patterns are broken, where boundaries have been crossed or never built at all. But when we refuse to face it, we also refuse the lesson. Avoidance becomes a lifestyle. We scroll, binge, stay busy, stay distracted, anything to not feel. But all the while, the pain remains. And over time, the cost of avoidance grows. We become emotionally numb. We start to feel disconnected, not just from pain, but from joy too. Our inner world flattens because you cannot selectively shut down emotions. When you suppress one, you suppress them all. And so we wonder why life feels dull, why relationships feel distant, why we feel so far from ourselves. The answer often lies in all the things we've tried not to feel. To grow, we must have the courage to sit with what hurts, to look at it honestly, without running, without blaming, without turning away. It's in that quiet confrontation where transformation begins. The pain itself isn't what keeps us stuck. It's our refusal to move through it. Growth asks for presence, and presence asks for vulnerability. Only when we stop avoiding can we begin to integrate the pain and reclaim the parts of ourselves we left behind trying not to feel. We often search for reasons why we feel empty, hoping for answers that lie outside us. But the truth is, emptiness isn't a flaw, it's a signal. A signal that something essential has been neglected within. When the mind is untrained, when we chase what must be built inside, when we stop observing ourselves, when we repeat unconscious patterns, when we drift from purpose, and when we run from pain, we create the perfect conditions for that hollowness to grow. But the power to break the pattern is already in us. It begins the moment we stop running, the moment we choose stillness over distraction, awareness over habit, honesty over avoidance. You don't need to fix yourself. You need to meet yourself. Sit in your own presence long enough and you'll find that the emptiness isn't empty at all. It's space. And in that space you can plant something real, something rooted, something alive. This is not about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you were before the noise, before the fear, before the forgetting. Growth doesn't come from escape. It comes from return. Return to the self, return to purpose, return to presence. And in that return, you'll realize you were never truly empty. You were just waiting to come home,